My hair's doing its own thing today. Oh my gosh, it's everywhere. Jeez, been another day in eastern Kentucky, in Pike County. Has it ever? Let me see if I can move stuff around because I just got in the house. I just made it back in not 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago at the most. Because, yeah, it's been one of those days, folks. So, who's out there with me these days? Who's listening in? Let's see who comes in and says hi. Oh my goodness. So yeah, I've been out doing some delivering today, and I'm going to tell you, it was like a 50-mile drive this time around, but we went all over the place. Just a brief update on family; they're doing well, considering. Um, Mom is right now. I just got back in, like I said, maybe about 10 minutes ago from a long drive around Pike County, and so mom's doing all right. My sister's all right, and my brother's all right. And I got all the supper out of the oven. I'd made some supper earlier. I put in a roast and some potatoes and peppers in a pan and stuck it in the oven and baked it for almost 3 hours, I guess, 2.5 to 3 hours. And I want to tell you, it is delicious. Woo, goodness, is it ever? So, so I make sure that everybody's good. So I run in, check on them, make sure that everything's just going the way it's supposed to be going. Get the food out of the oven, make up the plates for the people who need the plates made up, and then I rush back here, back to my little abode in the corner. I am in my brother's home here as a caregiver for family, and very much appreciative of that, and very glad that I have the opportunity to be here to take care of them. That I'm in a place where I can actually do that. So it's important that the biggest things in your lives, not so much all this outside stuff that's going on in the world around you. Those things are important, but not nearly as much as taking care of your family, whether they're your natural family or your chosen family or your adopted family, whatever that family consists of, that you take care of your family. You take care of yourself first. Because there's an old saying that says that, hey, if you want to love your neighbor, but you got to love yourself too. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Well, you know how you can tell when somebody doesn't love themselves? It's the opposite of that. When you don't love your neighbor or those who aren't like you, when you don't have, at least a little respect and appreciation for them and a live and let live attitude toward them, then that speaks volumes on where you are. And that's the challenge for some people in this country, is that they spew all kinds of vitriol towards people that they don't like, ideologically, politically, people with LGBT people, trans people, you name it. They spew all this vitriol and they back it up and they go say, but I'm just saying that in love. No, it sure doesn't come across that way. I'll tell you that right now. It does not come across like that. But I have to say this too: where I am in eastern Kentucky, in Pike County, I really don't have situations like that. I engage with people everywhere, all the time, with no issues. And today, my little trip around Pike County took me to, let me see, Canada, Kentucky, which is not too far from here. And then I went to Kemper, Kentucky, where the local Kellogg's Pop Tart factory's at. Well, it's Killanova now, I think. Kellenova, something like that. They merged, but for the Pop Tart side. But anyway, that factory's in the Kemper area, and then I go all the way through Kemper and go across the mountain. I go down into Phelps, which I thought maybe that would be the place that was as close to Virginia as I would get today. But no. My last location was in Papaw, Kentucky, and it is just on the line just about in Virginia. And I just take a small package to somebody and drop it off. It's good. It's all good. I leave from there and I go back to Phelps and drive all the way down Phelps to just within inches of the West Virginia border. Go across the mountain and come back home right here where I am now. And that, it's I haven't been to some of these places, not ever. but that's fine. That's fine. Meeting new people, get to see people, talk with them, say hi, and they get to interact with me too. And it's probably their only ever interaction with someone like me, which is fine because now they know there's someone here who's like those people that they're all denigrating in the White House and in the Defense Department and across the federal government right now, giving them a hard time. All right. We all know about what was going on this past weekend, over the end of last week, and then the end of in Pride Month as well, which ends today. So there's a lot of things that really put some of our leaders' vitriol and anger and cruelty on display. And what do I mean by that? Well, we've seen them actually go around doing things like, the most recent thing is whenever they forced transgender people who were on active duty in the military, they forced them to leave for no reason, no good reason whatsoever, none, because these people are skilled and trained and knowledgeable, and many of them who have been there for a long period of time, they've got a chest full of ribbons and accolades and awards and all kind of commendations and been exceptional leaders like Captain Trey Worth from the Coast Guard, who was told he had to retire for no reason, no good reason. Bree Fram, Colonel in the Space Force, both 06s, both of these people, told they have to retire. But the cruelty is in the way that they force them to retire. And it baffles me that there can be that much cruelty in this country, and they shield it behind something else that I'll talk about shortly. But so they told them that they could retire, they had to retire, and that they would get an honorable discharge. But the catch was they couldn't retire using the uniform that they have been wearing for years now, the one that identifies with them, that matches who they are. But they had to wear the uniform of their sex assigned at birth. And you know how much of an insult that is? Really just an insult to people. And all they have been doing is leading and serving this country and doing it honorably for all of these years. For Bree and Trey, 20 plus years. But yet they were told, you can't wear your uniform. If you do wear your uniform at your retirement ceremony, it's got to be the uniform of your sex assigned at birth. But if you wear the other one, well, we'll pull you back in and give you a dishonorable discharge and take away all your benefits. This is cruelty, people. This is really nothing but cruelty. And I just don't understand why we would allow people like that to be running our government. It just doesn't make sense to me. We don't need cruelty. We don't need cruel people in these places. But it goes beyond that. See, the other part of this is that for those who are honorably discharged, who do not wear the uniform that makes them who they are, that identifies or matches who they are. Like if they're a trans woman, they'd wear a female uniform. If a trans man like Trey, they would wear the men's uniform. But the services were telling them that the only way you could get that honorable discharge is to wear the uniform. If you're going to do it, if you want to wear a uniform, you got to be the one that matches your sex assigned at birth. That's cruel. But the reason they kicked them out, and this is not the reason, but on the discharge papers, on the DD-214, there's a little code down there, box 23 or 24 on the DD-214, your discharge papers. That code that they assign to these trans people, these transgender service members of this country, that code says that they are a national security risk. Really? A national security risk? You have got to be kidding me. I don't get it. because these people aren't national security risks. It's a captain in the Coast Guard and a colonel in the Space Force. And Bree, the colonel, has been working in the Pentagon for a number of years now. And it's just crazy. They've got clearances for everything they need to have clearances for. They're not a risk, not a national security risk at all. Why was it put there? Well, because the people who did it, like Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and President Trump and the White House, the reason they did it is because they don't want to actually write down what they think. They lied about it. They created this out of nothing. This description of national security risk, they created it from no justification at all, and just put it on a piece of paper. But in reality, what they should have put down there was in bold letters, they should say the reason for this discharge is that the leadership are buttholes and bigots and just don't like transgender people. So they wanted to get rid of them. Just idiotic. But that would at least be saying the truth. What they put on the DD-214 is a lie. Years to come from now, probably after I'm long gone, but years to come, these veterans, newly minted veterans who were active duty service members just recently, they have a legal case to make that says that this was a lie that was put on their DD-214. But what will that do to them? Because employers who are doing any kind of security work that requires a security clearance can't hire them. The federal government won't hire them because they have to have a security clearance there too. That designator takes away their ability to get a security clearance to do any kind of work, especially in the fields that they've been working in already all these years, these decades. It's a deliberate slap in the face, and it is just atrocious. It's horrible. It is a horrible thing. It really, 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 I'm still pissed about it. I don't know if you can tell that or not, but I'm still pissed about it. But I do hope somewhere down the road that all of these veterans as a class of veterans who were discharged under this thing where they were kicked out as being transgender, that they can get that designation removed from their DD-214. And I hope they can do it pretty quickly, actually. I don't want them to wait down the road. It needs to start, that process needs to start now. And if anyone is out there watching this right now who has that kind of pull or authority or legal backing or background, as a class, the transgender veterans, the transgender people who have been kicked out of the active duty military under the Trump administration, the second one here, as a class, they have a class action lawsuit that they can take because the president and Pete Hegseth lied when they put on there their national security risk. That's the avenue that they need to take. Get that off that record, off that DD-214 as fast as possible so these people can actually do work in the field that they've been trained to do. Like when my son got out of the Air Force, he had been in for about 9 years, something like that, about 9 years, I suppose. I think it was. He kept all of his clearances like I did when I was in. We kept it for just I don't know, probably a year or something like that, maybe longer, depending on how long you were in, I guess. I'm not quite sure, but he kept his clearances and everything. They bought him out. They got him to leave. This is a decade ago. Gave him money to leave the Air Force, and he was a Predator, one of the operators, Predator for the drones. And very, 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 very skilled at that job. Awards all over the place, plaques inside his squadron. I was in his squadron and at Whiteman Air Force Base, and he's got all this plaque with his name on it up there. And I'm not going to tell you what it said because it's likely not something that needs to be in the public sphere that much. But many of these awards and things that he received while he was in the Air Force, was for exemplary service. He helped design the systems that became the operating manual for the the, um, the Predator drone, and and he did that, and he was good at it. But they riffed him out, and then they tried to buy him back in. They wanted him to come back into service about 6 months later, and he said, "No, no, I'm not going back in with you because you'd want all your money back." But all of these people are being kicked out now because of the fact they're trans. My son's not trans. He's just a straight white guy. Okay. Not that that matters to anybody, or shouldn't anyway. But my son is an exceptional human being, and so are all of my four kids, the son and three daughters. And I very much appreciate who they are. I very much appreciate that most of them, I think 3 out of the 4 kids of mine, the children of mine, are connected to the military in their household in some way. And I find that to be just amazing to me. I'm so glad. I'm so glad about that, and we could actually fly the flags of every service branch in my immediate household, for, let me see, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Army, the Air Force, and even some National Guard units. And then I'm hoping that of my 8 grandchildren, that 1 or 2 or all 3 of them, all of them, go into service to the nation in some capacity, because I think it's important. I think it's a hugely important thing to follow in that and actually do something for something bigger than yourself. And I certainly hope that they do. But I need one of them at least to go into Space Force, and I need one to go into Coast Guard. Anybody listening? That way we can have the whole spread of flags. And I can put them on my place here in Kentucky. Just stand up a section of flags and for every service branch we represent within the umbrella of the United States, because we served for, we're in defense of the Constitution of the United States, not the president, but the Constitution of the United States. And that service in my family goes back a long, long way. My dad was in the Navy. He was a steel worker in the 50s. Actually built the platforms where they tested nuclear bombs, the atomic bombs on, out in the Philippines and out there in the Western Pacific. He built those platforms, and then they'd blow a bomb up and they'd stick him on a plane and go flying through the radiation cloud. They just didn't know what they didn't know. But they'd fly them through that cloud, and they'd swallow a dosimeter on a string. And even the commanding officer of this whole group would do the same thing. They'd swallow a dosimeter, get on a plane, go see. They wanted to know how much radiation they were getting through the skin of that plane and through their own bodies. And they were flying with photographic plates that would get the hits, the radiation hits, and they could track it. And they would take all that stuff to Los Alamos and go over there and do the counting and checking and everything like that. But that's my dad. He was in the Navy as like I said, a steel worker, an SW2, steel worker, second class. And his dad wasn't in the service, and his dad wasn't in the service before that. But on back, we had some who served in the Civil War on both sides. Both sides. Northern and the Southern, the U.S. and the Confederacy, and they were immediate family. They were like brothers and uncles and people like that, all in the same family. Yeah. So then you go back further than that, and the 2 generations around that time, they all served in the Civil War, mostly in the Confederacy. But you go back further now, you're back to the one who actually settled in this area back in 1795, who actually came back here, was Alden, A-L-D-E-N, Alden Williamson. And his first wife was Isabel Thompson, and they had 5 kids together. And his second wife, after his first one died, the second wife was Mary Elizabeth Polly Jackson, and she had a whole bunch of kids. There's 13 or 14 of them altogether. So when you move a family that size into this area in 1795, early 1800, you become the family that owns a lot around here. Got tied up in all kinds of families. But and that person, Alden, was actually in the Virginia militia in 1774, 1775 during the Battle of Point Pleasant, which is Lord Dunmore's war, actually. And so that he was in the, he didn't actually serve on the front line. It would have been an Indian territory, but he didn't serve there. He was held in reserve back in his home base in Russell County, Virginia. So I know you thoroughly enjoy the little history lesson there, but see, that Alden Williamson was contemporaneous with Daniel Boone and John Walker, George Washington. My family on my mom's side actually served. On the Scaff side, the SCALF family, they actually served at Valley Forge. They were there and served in the Battle of Brandywine. And that's that side of the family. So that my connections to the military in this country go back to the beginning of this country. And so it's humbling to think about all of that and to know that the nation that we have today rejects some of its citizens simply because they don't like who they are. And that's disturbing to me, especially given, I got a couple things to add to this before I get off here, especially given that the man who founded the United States Cavalry, who was contemporaneous with George Washington, actually served there at Valley Forge, also helping to create the cavalry, was a Polish general by the name of Kazimierz Pulaski. And when his body was exhumed in the 2010-2015 period of time, they discovered that his bones indicated that he was female, intersex at the very least. But when you got your bones that actually show these things, that you're most likely were exactly what that your bones say. But here's the thing, though: he was raised as a boy, christened as a boy, raised as one. So likely his external body looked like a male body, but internally it was all female. So that's Kazimierz Pulaski, general, founder of the Army's cavalry, United States Army Cavalry. And that part of the history under Hegseth and them, it wouldn't surprise me if they tried to eliminate all of that and rewrite the history around all of that. But then, how do you deal with the others in the Civil War? Like Albert Cashier, immigrated to the United States year, 2 years, something like that, or more, a little bit more than that. And as a female, about a year or so prior to the Civil War, started living and acclimating as a man. Everybody knew them to be male in every way. He dressed as that. He carried himself as that. He conducted his business as that. And then when the war started, he joined the Union Army as himself, Albert Cashier. So Albert goes on to get captured and held in a Southern prison, a Confederate prison, and then escapes. Goes back and joins the Union Army to continue fighting. And Albert ended up in several campaigns during the Civil War, survived all of that, got out, got an honorable discharge, got a pension, no less, as Albert Cashier. And then around 2000, or not 2000, but around 1910, 1913, somewhere in that period of time, he's older now and he'd been drawing a pension for a while and everything. He was still connected to his buddies from the time that when he was in the Union Army and the Civil War, still connected. Those connections were real and powerful, and they were all friends and buddies, and they supported each other. but none of them knew that Albert was really was early on identified as a female and was born as a female. That's what I'm trying to get to. Was born as a female. No one knew that. But around that time of 1910 or so, Albert got hurt. I'm not sure the exact story right off the top of my head. I think it might have been one of those early cars kind of hit him, or a horse hit him, or something like that. Ended up in the hospital. The doctors discovered that he was physically female. And so they let the government know. They tried to strip him of his pension and all this kind of stuff, and did. And then sent him to a mental health institute. Forced him to wear dresses. Basically tried to completely obliterate the fact that this man had served in the Civil War successfully and lived his life successfully as a man all that time. And then what happened was all of his buddies from his time in the Union Army all got together and petitioned to get his pension reinstated. They couldn't get him out of the mental health institution, the insane asylum. They couldn't get him out of there too much. Just tried to make life easier for him and tried to stay in contact with him. But when he died, that insane asylum, or the people that he was associated with at the time, wanted to actually tried to put his old name on there and not put any recognition that he had served in the Civil War or anything like that. So all these people, all these his former service mates, got together and made sure that he was taken care of properly. An exemplary person, denied dignity at the end of their life because of stupidity. Forward to today, I mean, there have been other trans people who have served all the way through too, by the way. For instance, I've got a good friend out in California right now, about 86, maybe probably older than that, 87 or 88 now. Enlisted in the Navy in 1956. Rose through the rank of chief as a he, biological male. Retired as a male. Got the discharge, everything to prove it. Got to wear his uniform for retirement and all that kind of stuff. I've seen it. And then got out of the service in, what was it, 67 or 69 or somewhere around there, something like that. And then began transitioning. In California, the Army there, located there, required her help with IT stuff, because she's really super smart with IT stuff and computers and things like that. And she, now, who had completely transitioned, was known by the Army, the U.S. Army, as someone they could count on to get work done as a civilian. But they asked her to join the Army. Just go ahead and join the Army. So she went into the Army as herself, not as the man, but as her. And then everybody knew, all the way up through the command in California in the early mid 70s. They all knew this. They knew who she was. Pentagon found out, tried to kick her out. Oh, they did. They ended up kicking her out. They tried to give her a dishonorable discharge, but California wouldn't allow that to happen. And also, she'd never lied about anything. Everybody knew all the way up the chain of command, except inside the Pentagon. So she ended up with a DD-214 that was an honorable discharge from the Army as herself. So she has 2 discharges. A DD-214 from her time as a male in the Navy, and a DD-214 from her time as a woman in the Army. So don't tell me that this is all new stuff. Don't tell me that. We've been around forever. If wherever people have existed, we've been there all throughout the history of humanity. It's just a part of biological reality. Whether or not you think that's true or not, that's just the way it is. It is that way. But we've got to find a way to communicate with those who are trying to tell us that trans is a lie. Being transgender is deceptive, when in fact we know it's not. But we still have to find a way to talk to them. And if we could get some research being done in the science area of all of this, where people over here on this side, my side, our side, actually are not afraid of the science. Right now, too many of us are, of real scientific research, not just the social studies and stuff like that, but actually doing real research. We need to get to that. But we also have to bring in all the naysayers, not all of them, but we have to bring in the naysayers over here who say all of our data says this, and it denies who you are. And over here on this side, we got all of this data says, yeah, there is sufficient grounds for your existence. But we know that, right? We're here. But we have to find a collaborative way. It can be an adversarial collaboration, meaning we bring people in, we establish the ground rules, we do the research, whether it's biological, genetic, brain scans, all of it. We establish the methodology that's going to be used in a collaborative way between those who don't want us around or don't accept us and those who do. And then the result will be something that can actually be sustainable over a period of time. It can carry forward. It will move the country forward. It won't be a rapid jerking motion, but it will be steady progress. But we have to be strong enough to accept the facts, whatever they may be. So do they. That's a hard one for people to get. You have to be at that place where you're comfortable with who you are, so much so that you go with the evidence wherever it may take you. And with that, let's call it a day, and we'll do it again tomorrow, sometime tomorrow. Noonish, 1-ish, something like that, Eastern time, for the midday program, Midday with Me. And then also at 6 p.m. For the Path Forward. Have a great evening, everyone. I'm going to go eat some supper. Talk to you later.